So 1975 is basically known for one thing in our culture.
Humberto's birth.
Yeah. And Jaws was released in theaters across the nation. It broke many records. It jump-started the career of Steven Spielberg. It was his first big hit. He was 27 years old when he directed this movie, by the way, which is absolutely incredible.
That is crazy.
He would go on to be quite possibly the most accomplished movie director of all time. I was 4 years old and I desperately wanted to see this movie, but I wasn't allowed. I think I saw the poster and thought it was a porno because the poster was sort of porny.
How would you know what a porno was?
I don't know when I eventually saw it. It might have been when it was aired on TV in 1979, which kind of makes sense. And I remember it being kind of interesting, but I don't remember being affected by it very much. Maybe it was because we had a tiny 12-inch TV or something. And rewatching it recently, I realized there's a lot of talking. There's just a lot of hanging out. There's not a lot of action. And also, I grew up as a kid who loved playing in the water, loved going to the ocean, loved going to the lakes. And so it just didn't resonate with me. And I didn't really appreciate it until about 10 years ago. I heard lots of talk about its significance. People I respect saying it was their favorite movie of all time. And I remember thinking, well, geez, that's kind of weird. I mean, Jaws? So let me ask you, Berto, how did you discover this movie?
I didn't grow up by the ocean. I grew up in a big ass city, Bogota, full of buildings and like, that's it. You know, it's this flat mesa full of concrete. So I didn't really know. I have no sense of the beach, and I'd been to a beach and stuff, but it wasn't like I lived nearby. And so it all felt like this foreign thing, almost like watching a King Kong movie. They go into the jungles of Africa and they bring out this giant, that's how it felt to me. And it felt awesome and intimidating. And of course it was on TV, so they edited it out a lot, I'm sure. So I'm sure I missed quite a few scenes of the movie. But the overall experience as a kid, I was like, oh, that's a crazy, awesome movie because the shark is killing everyone. And in my mind, it was like nonstop shark attacks. Whereas in reality, as you say, there's a lot of talking. There's not as much action as one might think. But yeah, and then I watched Jaws 2 and Jaws 3D, not in 3D, just again on TV. And I was big into the whole Jaws thing and shark thing when I was a kid.
Oh, really? What about you, Collin?
Well, Jaws has been a really important film for my family because there's a famous story of my youngest aunt not being able to go to the bathroom for a day because the oldest sister took her to see Jaws when she was very young, and she was so deathly afraid of water that she couldn't take a comfortable shit. And that movie, when I was in elementary school, or that story rather, just always cracked me the fuck up. And I just asked over and over my Aunt Kathy, the oldest one, to repeat that story. So it sort of built up in iconography before I even saw the movie. And mind you, before I did actually see it, I had already fallen in love with the ocean. As you can see, well, I guess people listening to this can't see, but I'm wearing my octopus shirt. I've got tentacles all over my chest and torso. And they were, my obsession. My pediatrician, she also had a side job as a marine biologist. So I would ask her questions about, oh my God, where did you go to explore? Oh my, this, that, or the other. And then subsequently I became a hoarder of ocean books. I got the huge books from Barnes and Nobles that I couldn't even read, but yet I would just sit through the pages and imagine that I was Jacques Cousteau, imagine that I was, scuba diving underwater and seeing all these amazing things. Absolutely no fear, only excitement. So my dad decided, as dads do, that it was time to show me Jaws one sunny morning. And I do not know how old I was, but
You're old enough, son. You're 3 now.
Yeah, I was definitely not in middle school because I remember seeing Deep Blue Sea in middle school, and that was a whole other animal entirely. But so I was a few years before that, probably 4th or 3rd grade. Anyway, so I got so into the movie, I was so invested in what was happening that I ended up making my own boat out of the pillows and cushions on the couch and watching it from like my own boat. And by the end of the movie, I was pretending, I like rewound it several times and I pretended that the shark was coming to get me. And the rest, as they say, is history. Every time I would go to the pool, I would want to either play as the shark or play as Brody. And whoever I was with was like, are you kidding me? You want to do this? Are you serious, you nerd? And yeah, so as the years have gone by, I've grown to appreciate the specificity of the dialogue and how real the situation feels. You know, everything is so tangible. And as I've gotten more mature, the characters and their plights have meant more to me. So when Brody is feeling like he's just over everything at the dinner table and he has his hands in his face, and then his little boy comes up to him and kind of changes everything by just doing something silly and sweet. You know, as a kid, I didn't care, but that brought me to tears when I rewatched it a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it's a very touching scene, actually. And me too, when I was a kid, I was just like, oh, it's just a kid. But watching it as an adult is definitely a lot more touching. And watching it more recently, really feel the reason why I think this appealed to adults is because it's not just a monster movie or a scary horror movie or something, but it has a humanity to it, in Brody and in Richard Dreyfuss's character, that it just feels so real. And it makes me wonder about movies made today, like a movie like this, like the most recent Jurassic Park movies. They're essentially in the same category of these giant, animals that are going to kill people, and it's supposed to create that kind of tension. And in those movies, I have no care or knowledge of who those characters are. They're just like,
Sure.
They could be played by anyone. The lines could be anything. And it just shows you how you can make a movie that is a popcorn movie and actually at least try to make the characters relatable,
Yeah, some of the best movies in general that are what I would call where normally they could be interchangeable. The thing that makes them great is because they're not actually about what the surface topic is. Like in the case of Jaws, it's not really, if it were just about a shark attacking people, that would be the interchangeable movie that you could cast anyone with. That's Jaws 2, that's Jaws 3D, that's Jaws 4, now it's personal. That's that BS. But the first one actually could have been the surface topic could have been anything. They could have been going out in the woods to investigate a troll. They could have been trying to avert global warming. It could have been anything. It's just that it's about like these two personalities that are different coming together to try to overcome something that is way beyond them, and their interactions and personalities and the dialogue and their own like families and superset of people that are around them. That makes the movie. Oh, and there happens to be a shark. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I want to talk about the psychology that I thought of up front here, and then we'll get into more details about the movie. So as you were referring to your aunt who couldn't sit on a toilet anymore, there were a lot of people who had phobias as a result of this movie. Obviously, phobias for sharks, for swimming, for just water in general. And there were reports of some people were afraid of their own bathtubs, and apparently in the Collin household, afraid of a toilet.
That's crazy.
And you think about that, you're just like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, phobias don't make any sense. And that to watch a movie like this, particularly if you're young, you could be traumatized by it. Apparently Collin has a heart of stone, and when he watched it, he just said, I just want to blow stuff up, or I want to be the shark, blow me up,
So that makes sense. He does have a heart of stone. But then there were cases like mine where I was so far removed from where this was supposed to be taking place that it was like if I watched King Kong or Godzilla or something, I wouldn't be like, oh, I can't go outside because Godzilla might crush me. This wasn't anywhere near me. So I'm like, yeah, sharks are awesome.
But the toilet was near you and the bathtub was near you.
Yeah, I guess so. But there's no toilet scene.
So Collin, why did you not get afraid of things? Why did you take it the other direction?
Because I've always felt like I was a a creature from the sea displaced on land. You know, I was always a swimmer. I've always enjoyed being really far underwater. Like when we would go to the pool, I found solace in the deepest section. And it just creates a sense of inner serenity for me. And when I got certified to scuba dive, I felt the same way. I wanted to be away from everything for a little while. And it's the only time, you know, when I'm really underwater, it's the only time that I feel truly unapproachable. And that's not that I don't love human contact or that I don't want to talk to people or connect. Absolutely I do, but it's really a disconnect. And for me, all the animals of the sea are a part of that. And the sharks are a huge part of it. As I was watching Shark Week just a few weeks ago, I was wishing that I was there in the water with the great white sharks. I want to see them. I want to be close to their mass. The last time I had an experience like that was, mind you, manatees and sharks. There's a vast difference between the two creatures. But I got to float peacefully with these manatees in Florida, you know, being unobtrusive, not touching them, nothing, just relaxing alongside them. And I felt rejuvenated. It was like going to a spa, being with my sea creature brethren.
Well, I imagine manatees can be quite dangerous if you're not careful. No, I'm serious. Like, I mean, they're massive, right?
They're benign blobs floating, but they could be scary. I mean,
like hippos are benign blobs that can kill you really easily.
No, hippos can't kill you, but manatees, I don't think there's much of a threat. But you're reminding me, Collin, and I thank you for that. I felt the same way when I was a kid. I kind of it's been so long that I think I forgot that about myself as well. When I was, like I said, this movie didn't scare me, and I was thinking, well, maybe it's because I was in the water all the time, and I was. And I was that kid as well, that I went the deepest in the deep end. I went the furthest out in the lake. I would go underneath docks and other kinds of, you know, surfaces that people were like, oh, there's muskrats down there. And I was always like, come on, you know, relax. Or if there is a muskrat, I guess that's just what's going to happen. So getting back to psychology here, or another side of psychology, is the phobias. And the fact is, as I'm sure Collin can attest to, since he's been close to them, sharks almost never attack humans. Everyone who hangs out in the ocean can attest to that, either, you know, being, you know, recreation or surfing or scuba. And Jaws really introduced this notion that all sharks want to do is eat humans. You know, you ask the average person, particularly after this movie, okay, you're in the ocean, you see a shark, what happens? Well, shark obviously eats me. I mean, that's just what's going to happen. But the fact is sharks don't consider humans to be food. You know, they have certain food that they eat. And the other thing
like
is,
the mayor of a certain Amity.
The other thing is that, well, in some ways, actually, he was right. But obviously, under the evidence that was happening, there was a aberrant shark of some kind. And anyway, so Berto and Collin, likelihood of dying from a shark, you know, 1 out of 1 in blah, blah, blah. Berto, what do you think?
For the average person, 1 in 1,000.
Okay, Collin.
I'm going to go with 1 in like 50,000.
1 in 4 million.
Oh, it's a little less likely than I thought.
Likelihood of dying in a car accident, Berto.
1 in 2,000.
Yeah, I don't know where my math was on that first one. I think I got mentally confused. I'm going to do 1 in 1,000.
1 in 100.
Okay.
1 in 100. Yikes. A lot of people die in car accidents. By the way. Yeah. Top 3 countries with the highest number of shark attacks, not necessarily deaths, since they started keeping track in 1965. Berto.
Australia.
And okay, what are the other
I'll
two?
name one.
What are the other? Okay, all right, Collin, what do you think?
I'm gonna go with Australia, Africa, and Asia.
Number 1.
You can't go Africa. You can't go Africa. That's not a country.
Yeah.
You got to be more specific.
Okay, specific country in Africa.
I guess. Oh.
You were going
to say Brazil.
I'll go South Africa. Like
Yeah,
That's
South
just
Africa.
South Africa.
But y'all missed the top is United States, number one.
Really?
Oh,
No
Number two is
way.
Australia. Well, one, the United States has a lot of people. So
Yeah.
Australia, not so many people.
Yeah.
And then South Africa. So you got United States, Australia, South
Huh.
Africa.
That is
The most-
shocking, though.
The most fatalities are in Australia.
Oh, okay.
Top 3 states in the United States, Berto.
Okay, Florida, California, and oh gosh, I don't know. Oregon.
Collin.
I'm gonna go with Florida as well, California, and New York.
You're doing awesome. Florida, California. That is right. The third one is a little obvious because you're thinking mainland United States.
Oh, of course, Hawaii.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Florida, California.
Also, I know that Brazil is in South America. I just wanted everybody to know that.
Okay.
What did you say? That
I didn't think that Brazil is in Africa. I just want
Oh.
people to know. Like,
Oh,
I was
okay.
thinking, yeah.
I didn't even catch that. I thought
Like,
Brazil was Africa.
I switched my thinking,
Yeah.
but it sounded like I was an idiot. Okay.
Right. And I cringed on camera, and then I thought, should I point it out or should I just let it go? And I decided to let it go.
I didn't even catch that.
Okay. In the United States, how many fatalities since 1965?
500
50
casualties.
55 years.
No.
Okay. And Colin.
I'm going to go with a rough
A
100.
million. Wait, what?
48.
Okay, yeah.
So
48? That's
about,
close to 500.
about once a year. Yeah. I mean, it's not that bad.
It's an order
So,
of magnitude.
A little less than one shark death per year, but it's something.
But Kirk, what would it have been had Jaws not been released? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it was-
Well,
thank
hard
you.
to know.
Probably 48 of those or 47 of them happened between the years of 65 and 75. And then everyone's like, oh, staying out of the water now.
So yeah, the thing to remember for people with phobias watching this sort of thing is to look at the evidence. If you get in a car and you drive somewhere, or you as a passenger allow yourself to be driven somewhere, you are much, much more likely to exponentially more likely to die in that situation than you are swimming in the ocean from a shark. Now, there's other dangers of swimming in the ocean, obviously, but shark attack is definitely not one of them. And for people who actually scuba around with sharks, I mean, one of the things that really drove it home for me as a kid was going to the Seattle Aquarium. I know, Collin, you've been there before, I believe. And in the big tank that you can walk up to the giant, you've seen those in the movies where you walk up to a giant glass and you're just in a huge aquarium. There are what we call dogfish, which are kind of smallish sharks, but they're sharks. They're sharky sharks. And there's all these other fish in there. And the sharks are just kind of milling around. And if you didn't know this was a predator, you'd just think it was just another fish. Am I right about that, Collin? I mean, have you swam next to sharks?
I haven't done anything that is like a shark expedition where the actual, diving trip or snorkel trip is for viewing sharks, but I've worked with them a lot at various camps. Let me explain. So I know that SeaWorld is bad. I know it's bad, but growing up, the happiest place in the world to me was SeaWorld. As a nerd that loved the ocean, growing up in San Antonio, that's where I went. That's where I was every weekend if I could. I had the pass. I did all the summer camps. I would go behind the scenes. And I spent a lot of time swimming with them there because they have things in the back where you can wade with them, you can pet them, you can feed them. And they were very sweet. Honestly, my experience with sharks is that they're very passive animals. And if you treat them like you treat a cat, you're going to be fine. Like, are you going to go and grab a cat's tail and yank it? Well, if the cat strikes you, then you deserve it. And if you do that to a shark, then you deserve it as well. But I do think that you are correct. Most often it's a case of mistaken identity. And a shark attack is what I would say a series of crazy factors, one after the other. That's what we've continued to find. It's like you were in this place, the water was this dense, the visibility was this, the shark was in this mode at this migratory time. This prey item was in the area, blah, 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 blah. It's just crazy circumstances really have to be in place. But I don't think people think about it. I think people just, whenever they're not sure what's under the water, they think shark and they think danger.
So hold on, because like for me, I mean, I understand that. And obviously I was kidding about 1 in 1,000 and I'm aware that, these are very rare, but at the same time, I'm not surprised. Like, it's not like I'd be shocked if someone says, do you know that Joey was like running around with lions and one of them attacked him and he died? Be like, well, that's sad, but what the fuck was Joey doing with the lions? Like, it's kind of like, the people that get a chimpanzee and then one day the chimpanzee kills them. It's like, well, these are animals. They're not like domesticated dogs through thousands and thousands of years, Yeah. Anyways, I'm not shocked that a shark every now and then would be like, oh, that looks like a seal, I'm going to eat it.
Right. And the analogy that I just thought of, and I think it's apt, is in the same way that if you go into the ocean, there's a really small chance that a shark is going to attack you. If you go on a hike in the Seattle area, there's a really small chance that a bear or a cougar is going to attack you and try to eat you. But people don't not go hiking. People go hiking with knowing that, yeah, there's a small chance that a cougar or a bear is going to eat me, but it's so small. I mean, why worry? I'm much more likely to die in a car crash on the way to the hike than I am in the woods. But I think there's something perhaps innate in us or available to us as an anxiety about going underwater. I think that there's something kind of primal about going underwater, particularly for people as children who weren't exposed to that. Me and Collin, probably at the age of 2, I mean, that was the way it was for me, is from a very early age, I was just left alone to play in ways that my parents should not have done looking back. I mean, there were several times when I absolutely should have died and just didn't, and so I was extremely used to swimming. In the same way that as a kid, age 2, 3, 4 years old, I was climbing 50-foot trees by myself, and was not afraid of heights. So I think it's a matter of exposure early. And I think for a lot of people, they aren't, exposed to just water play when they're young, and or there's some kind of trauma that happens when they're kids. And so I think that this movie would definitely play into that,
Yeah.
The other psychological thing I want to talk about is that it depicts social phenomena, which is kind of interesting or relevant to us today. Like,
okay.
Expert, what?
I mean, do I think I know where you're going with this?
I think you do.
Okay. So let me explain something. As a kid, I watched that movie and similar movies. In fact, all the other Jaws movies, as well as other disaster movies and stuff. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And one of the things that I enjoyed as a kid was yelling at the television, like, why would you not listen to Johnny Hero? Don't you see what's happening? But now as I grew up and I would rewatch some of these movies, especially the worst ones, but even Jaws, even the original, I started developing a different opinion. I started developing this thought of like, well, this is still a fun movie, but come on, like in reality, like people wouldn't be this dumb. Like, if all the signs are there, if the experts are telling you, like, you would just not go in the water. Like, you wouldn't reopen for 4th of July. Like, come on. But, it's an enjoyable movie. And then I realized, nope. It was just a documentary.
Yeah. So the other question I have, Collin, you love this sort of thing. You love Shark Week. I'm not a Shark Week aficionado like you, but Shark Week is a thing. Sharknado is a thing. Why do us humans like this sort of thing so much? Sharks, Shark Week, Jaws, Jurassic Park,
Ted Bundy.
All those, the theme of large animals eating humans. Why do we like that sort of thing, Colin?
I think you used this word earlier, and I don't remember the exact context, but you said primal. And I think that that's why we love these movies, and that's why I think these scripts continue to get purchased by producers and then sold to us, because they know that we will respond to primal things, primal urges like escaping from a hungry mouth. That Jaws is the most primal motivation for its characters. Primal things like attraction, romantic comedies, and so on and so forth. That's what I think. That's where our genres are derived, is from primal things, and it varies. I think from script to script. So you've got Jaws in one corner and Sharknado way on the other side. I think in the hands of someone like Steven Spielberg and pretty much every creative person who worked on Jaws, you can tell a story that, like we've just discussed, teaches us about how we should deal with nature. It's a fundamental need, I think, for humans and our societies to figure out how to coexist with nature. And that encompasses all of the fear-based things that used to be the reason that we told children fairy tales. Don't go into the woods because a wolf is going to eat your ass up. You know what I mean? Like, grandma's already been eaten and you're in danger next. But on the other side, I think there's a vicarious way of enjoying the punishment. Nature punishing humans for being ignorant or having folly or seeing the ways things could go bad and ignore them, and ignoring them. So that's where I think movies like Sharknado come in, because we're not meant to empathize with those characters. And so when they die one right after the other in goofy ways, you're sort of like, yep, you had it come in, And so, so it just depends on like the style of the film, but both of them work for, I think, different people.
Yeah, well said. The thing I'll add to this is the trope of that I just realized that this movie either invented or participated in is you have the sexualized girl is the first one to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a horror movie trope where this sort of quote unquote slutty girl takes a guy into the bedroom, and then the whatever horror movie version, a sword gets, thrust through both backs, and here we have the exact same thing. We have the promiscuous girl takes off her clothes, looks at a guy, and correct me if I'm wrong, but she was flirting with a guy that she had never talked to before, right? I mean, it looked like they didn't even know each other really.
They were just getting drunk at a party, yeah.
But the way she was looking at him and the way he was like, oh, she's looking at me, I got the impression like they had never even talked to each other before.
They hadn't, because when she's running, he's like, "What's your name?" She's like, "Chrissy."
Yeah.
It's the first love at first sight, man.
Yeah. So she goes running off, presumably, a sexual encounter, rips off her clothes, jumps in the water, and the first one to go. So this is a wish that I think a lot of people have, which is one, to punish impurity, to two, punish young people, and three, to punish women. I mean,
women and sexual impurity.
Right. And
if she had been just like violent, I think she wouldn't have been eaten by the shark.
Right.
Yeah.
But we also get the benefit of visually partaking sexually. So we get to both witness sex, which we want, and also witness the punishment of it, which we also want. So we get everything in those kinds of scenes.
Because Michael Myers and the shark in Jaws are essentially the same character. You know what I mean? There's not much variance there. They have a direction, and we don't understand that direction, but people are dying one right after the other. There's not real. Let me rephrase. Michael Myers, as he was presented to us in the first one, I know they go into like weird origin stuff and occult later, but in my opinion, the first one is the only one that matters, and that's what I'm talking about.
Well, there was a development in probably, I don't know when it started first, but there was a twist, because for all of like history, all the stories that were of this type where there was a monster in the wilderness, eventually men went and fought and hopefully killed the monster. Jaws is still that, now women can be casualties and all these things. I suppose sometimes maybe there's a woman in the team, but mostly it's the men. Okay, but
Alien.
then at some point, that's what I'm saying. At some point it changed, or they tried a variant where they're like, you know what? The woman's the only one who survives, and she doesn't go hunting. She's trying to mind her own business. The damage comes, kills everyone else, and she just like barely scrapes by, but she survives. And that was almost like a feminist angle to the whole thing, you know, because before it was like scary monster in the wilderness. Yeah, probably women are going to die, women, children, you know, a few men, but don't worry. The men's got this. The men's going to go deal with this. And then horror movies went and like, well, you know, actually, maybe Sigourney Weaver lives.
Right. The last psychological angle I want to take with this is death instinct as to why we like this sort of thing. So Freud proposed this idea, death drive, and an instinct for destruction, even of the self. And it's basically that Freud had a lot of change in his theory over time. And at first he had the pleasure principle, meaning that we evolved for an instinct for pleasure, not like necessarily explicit pleasure like cocaine. He liked his cocaine, but you know, relationship pleasure or comfort pleasure, this kind of thing. And, you know, it makes sense. But then he observed World War I, in which millions of people just threw themselves at death and killed each other. And then coming back from the war, they had PTSD flashbacks. And so he was trying to figure out, why would the mind choose to go back to World War I and witness death? Why would humans have evolved? Because he was very interested in human nature. And then he observed masochism, people who would sexually, you know, harm themselves or just self-harm, suicide, self-destructive behavior, addiction, and repetition compulsion, which I talk a lot about in the podcast, which is repeating bad childhood relationships in the future or in the present. And he observed this and he started going like, well, what is going on? Why are humans, you know, either choosing or not choosing, you know, but compelled to self-destruct, to expose themselves to difficulty? Why would that be? And so he concluded that we evolved an instinct to both move towards pleasure, but also to destroy the world and ourselves with it. I have to say, I'm not convinced by his theories. I consider all these things to be various different defenses of the brain and not a drive to self-destruction. But
Right.
It is kind of an interesting idea. And at the very least, you could say that we have a drive for power, and sometimes power leads to destruction. An example you'll see in kids, and I always try to relate it to kids because kids are more spontaneous and, you know, not tainted by culture, is, you know, you'll be playing with a kid and you'll be put, you know, let's say an 18-month-old child, you'll be stacking up a bunch of blocks, and the 18-month-old child, like a cat, just wants to knock it over. You know, there's just something that or they're eating in their high chair and they just want to throw their plates off of the high chair and hear it crash on the ground. Now to us, we're like, well, that's dirty. To the child, obviously the child doesn't know that, but there's something powerful about that. You know, you give them a drum and they just want to bang on the drum. The fact that you seem to covet this round or this square rectangle thing called a cell phone, they want that, you know, and they like power. And so I think if anything, not PTSD flashbacks, you know, maybe war, maybe masochism, maybe self-destructive behavior, eating disorders. There's some element of, if I'm powerless, I'll find power in any way I can, even if it's destroying others and myself. Does that make sense?
Interesting. Deep, dark, and interesting.
I think that comes across in the progression of death in Jaws as well, because it starts off with, you know, this girl who plunges into the sea, you know, willingly naked, and she's punished. And on some level, it's not really talked about again. Pieces of her body are found later, but nobody grieves for her. Nobody looks for her. Nobody's really enraged. It's still hush hush. Like, she disappeared and that's kind of okay. You know, we can move on. But then there's a child and the child dies. And so I think that it kind of comes into our cultural consciousness at that point, because seeing an adult woman who's sexually active, you know, being punished by like what could be described as a rape, you know, the shark is he's a kind of rapist murderer, you know, that versus a child, you know, people tend to get way more triggered by things that happen to kids in that regard. And then you move even forward, and I know there's the guy that drowns in the boat because he was too scared. That just serves, I think, to get us closer to the shark when we find the tooth. But then later, and I don't know if this is my reading of the scene, I don't know if I may be stretching, but we see this guy on a boat in the lagoon, and he's kind of like, hey, you guys okay over there, to the three little boys. And I don't know if they were meaning to imply this, but I kind of got the sense that he might have been like a predator. You know, he was sort of interested in what these three underage boys were doing, and then the predator punishes him. And it sort of, then our motivation shifts because we realize that the danger is closer to our children than we realize. And that's when Brody's like more assured in forcing them. He literally forces the mayor's hand to sign the order to get Quint to kill the shark. So I do think that these, that the shark is connected to this Freudian notion. And that's why I think people still today are so emotional about Jaws.
I didn't get that illusion with the guy in the boat. I mean, the way I read it is more of like it's a misdirection scene because we think something's going to happen. You know, we're meant to think something's going to happen to the children with the shark, and that he is pointing at it, going like, "Are you guys okay?" Because audience, FYI, they're probably going to get attacked. But then it's a misdirection to like, "Oh shit, I got attacked." But it's interesting. It's an interesting.
Let's go through some more general things about the movie. Great start to the movie. Just a fantastic start. Great characters. It just keeps moving and he uses the camera and there's that classic scene where they're on the ferry, right? Where he just uses the camera to tell a story. What did you guys like about the movie?
As I said, my first exposure to it was pretty, you know, little kid liking an action movie with sharks biting things, you know, like that. But I have certainly developed a deep taste for it, pun intended, as I grew up. For one thing, so a friend of mine, it was a tradition in their family to watch it every 4th of July because, you know, 4th of July is prominently featured. So there were a few years where like, I watched it like once a year. And for example, I didn't have to, you know, Kirk sent the email, hey, we should watch this again for this thing. I didn't have to because I had recently watched it, like just like last month, basically. And I really get a lot of enjoyment out of it because number one, it is totally scary. Like in the, you know, in the good way, not the cheesy horror movie way, but in like you get the tension, you get the stress, even though you've seen it, you know what's happening, you know, but it's still stressful. Those scene in the beach when Brody realizes, oh God, and then they zoom in on his face. Oh, it's stressful. I think that the funniness, the humor of their interaction, of the dialogue between him and Hooper they're just brilliant. And then you get the crabby old crusty sea expert, and that's just super enjoyable. It's got a great finale too. Like it's a big climax. So it's got a little bit of payoff for sure. Or not a lot of payoff. So for all those reasons, I think it's a very rewatchable movie for me. Yeah.
Collin?
I think that when it comes to both large scale blockbuster films and also very small character dramas, something that is an overlapping thing that I enjoy is a story that tells the truth of control that a character or a society has. And oftentimes they have less control than they think. So in the character study, this is usually like an unraveling story, like Blue Jasmine, somebody who thinks they have it all together, and then slowly they just scene upon scene upon scene is just a reinforcement of no, you don't, no, you don't, no, you don't. In this, you know, movie Jaws, it's a reinforcement that the mayor doesn't know what the hell he's doing and is unprepared. And to some degree, Brody is unprepared. To some degree, Hooper is unprepared. To some degree, yeah, they're all unprepared. Even Quint, the hero of fish slayers everywhere. He doesn't know what to do. And it just continues, that compiles for the entire movie until at the boat, Hooper tried what he thought, and there's that quick shot where, Brody comes over to Hooper and says, have you ever seen, and then he just cuts him off, says no, in that classic Spielberg way of having people talk over each other. So even the expert has no idea what the hell this shark is about. Quint, the master fisherman, he tried everything. He put everything on the hook. Put another barrel on him. We're going to bring him in and drown him. Bring him to the shore and drown him. He does all this shit. None of it works. I love that until you're underwater with Hooper and you see the shark approach the cage and you know that he's gone for. In an earlier draft, he was gone for. And they saved him because of they got a really great shot of a real shark on top of a cage. And then he swam away. But because he wasn't in the cage when they got that shot. But you get this sense of oh, we're never going to be in control, are we? We can prepare, but we're going to have to take what nature throws at us, whether that's a giant shark or a tsunami or damn coronavirus. And all we can do is we have to be Brody and accept that we're the person that doesn't have a mastery of the sea, but we still have to climb the last bit of boat that is left, take up our shotgun and shoot for success. And sometimes, especially in a Spielberg movie, you might make it out okay. So I love that. I love that sense of the story that it tells about humanity and our ignorance, and just all of the visuals. They bring me I feel like this movie sometimes is like a drink of wine for me. I'm look at that beach. Look at that beach. That is a nice beach. Look at that. Look at all these people having a good time on this shore. Yeah, maybe some of them are going to bite the dust, but I'm really enjoying this. And so anything with a beach setting, is just going to bring me all of the feels. So yeah, aesthetically, it hits a 10 for me.
Oh, a 10?
Well,
10 Collins at a 10?
Yeah, 10 for me.
All right.
There's another angle, actually. You just saying the beach thing. Did you actually read the book? The Jaws
No,
book?
I haven't read the book.
So I read that book in high school.
I read The Beast, but not that.
Okay. I read that book in high school and loved it. It was gritty. There was sexual stuff in it that was a little whoa. And it was such a good description of the action and everything. Loved it. And one of the things is that the beginning part of the book, he spends quite a bit of time describing the beach and the beachgoers. And it was sort of a little window into a foreign world for me, because it's talking about this New England kind of people that frequent this beach and old, kids from old money. And, it was a little bit, definitely talked about how white they were and stuff like this. And as I was reading that, I remember thinking, it was to me, it was describing, again, some foreign land, something mythical, because I spent 2 years in New York as a little kid, but not in Queens, so I didn't really have this exposure, this sense of what is that community like? What are these people like?
Yeah.
And the book did a really good job of describing that.
Interesting. So how many Bertos out of 10, Berto?
For the movie overall?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a 9 for me.
Oh, yeah. I think I give it a 7 or an 8. Other trivia: Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss apparently hated each other throughout filming this movie, and it sort of.
Oh, I did know that. I did.
The line "You're gonna need a bigger boat" was ad-libbed by Roy Scheider. Robert Shaw was literally drunk throughout filming this movie and was sometimes unavailable to shoot.
Makes sense.
Spielberg pranked George Lucas and got Lucas's head stuck in the shark's mouth when he was backstage. Steven Spielberg wanted Charlton Heston to play Brody, but decided against it because Heston usually prevailed in movies, so the audience wouldn't worry enough about him. The movie was supposed to be released the year before at Christmas, but because filming ran over schedule, its release was pushed back to summer of the following year, which was supposed to be a dead zone for crappy movies. And the success of this movie started the whole summer blockbuster phenomenon.
Man, I can't picture Heston as the lead because
whenever they do this, what was this? Magnum PI was supposed to be Indiana Jones.
But I could have seen that.
But it's hard to feel, you know
No,
what I mean?
of course, and I certainly wouldn't have preferred it. What I'm saying though is that Heston is too much on the spectrum closer to the Quint side of things, you know. So like, you don't need two alphas.
Because Brody's an everyman.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I decided to make a list of copycat movies of this movie. Obviously, The Meg, and then The Shallows with Blake Lively.
Well, there's a lot of shitty shark movies. Like there's like a bad shark movie every couple of years, like Spring Break Shark Attack, or the Asylum will release like a Sharktopus versus Crocosaurus, kind of thing. The Crocoship, more like it. They've done some semi-blockbustery ones, like I think it's called Shark Night, where a bunch of, it's basically Halloween ripoff, but on a beach. They're like all these young people who are hot get attacked by a shark. That's it, period. Well, it's like there's like an insane person. The killer like uses sharks to kill people. Like Mike Myers would use a knife 47 meters down, which was pretty recent. And then there were these girls, Mandy Moore included, they get trapped in a cage that rockets to the seabed and they can't get up, and there's great white sharks that stalk them.
Interesting. So let us conclude with rating every single Steven Spielberg movie in order. So I'm going to rattle my list off, and then y'all, reciprocate. So I have 4 different categories. I have some of the best movies of all time. Then my second category is other master directors wish their best movie was one of these movies. That's his second tier. And then the third tier is absolutely entertaining movies. And then the fourth tier is not great. So my top tier are, these are some of the best movies of all time, made by one director. Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite Spielberg movie. Saving Private Ryan, a close second. Schindler's List, a close third. I'm actually rewatching that today. E.T., I mean, I don't know if I'd rewatch E.T. today, but as a kid, when I was 11, I was Elliot. You know what I mean? Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that movie pops into my head all the time. And he wrote that movie as well. And Duel, I remember watching Duel when I was a kid and thinking it was brilliant. And then Jaws. So these are some of the American movie classics. You could say, these are the best movies that American film has created, and it just happens to be directed by one dude.
Right.
This next tier are other master directors wish their best movie was one of these movies. Color Purple, Jurassic Park, Minority Report, Munich, and Lincoln. All these are just masterpieces, and they don't, in my mind, rise to the level of Saving Private Ryan, Raiders, Schindler's List, E.T., Close Encounters. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like The Color Purple, Jurassic Park are just amazing movies, but not as amazing as Raiders. Anyway,
we'll see about that, but yes.
My next tier is absolutely entertaining, meaning I probably gave it like a 7 or 8 out of 10. Bridge of Spies, Empire of the Sun, Amistad, Always, The BFG, Ready Player One, The Goonies, Catch Me If You Can, Poltergeist. He was writer, producer, not director on that. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, War of the Worlds. People hate on that movie. I find it to be delightful. War Horse, The Terminal, and AI. People don't like AI very much, but I remember thinking it was interesting. Not amazing, but interesting.
Yeah.
Not good. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I know some people, Berto might disagree with this. That movie, rewatching Temple of Doom, is it's just not great.
No, I will agree. I wouldn't go so low, but I will certainly agree that it's a pale comparison. Like Indiana Jones 1 and 3 are amazing movies.
Yeah. The Lost World, Jurassic Park, not good. 1941, not good. The Post, I hated The Post. I thought it would. I mean,
is that El Postino or is that the Postman?
No,
or is that neither?
That's neither. It's The Post with. It's about it came out 3 years ago. It was nominated. It's about the Washington Post, I believe. Anyway, and then Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is by far.
What is that?
Yeah, I think we saw it in the theater together. No, yeah, I think we saw it in the theater together, Berto.
I think we sadly did.
Yeah, I mean that one scene where they're
No.
with the
Too soon.
bugs, and then the other scene when they're
Too soon.
between the. Oh, it's just so bad.
What about
In the jungle, where Shia
swinging
LaBeouf
through the
is-
vines.
Oh my god,
Yeah,
so bad.
yeah, and so that's by far like the Post is not that bad, and Indiana Jones Temple of Doom not that bad. In fact, I'm going to do a fifth tier, and I'm going to go one of the crappiest movies of all time.
Okay, but you are touching on something because The Post is way more boring than Crystal Skull. Sorry. but it is.
Wait. I'm not even gonna. Okay. I'll wait. I'll just wait patiently.
I'm glad, Colin, that you can agree that that's a terrible movie because it got kind of good reviews, and I'm just like, what? It's cheesy. It's boring. I mean, it's an interesting story, but it's just a terrible script. But I also think that Spielberg made some mistakes directing that movie as well.
I agree.
Like there's this one scene where they pan outside and they show a bunch of protesters because it's during Vietnam. And it just looks like, you know, that commercial that what the Jenner daughter was.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
It was worse than that. It's cheesier than that. And Steven Spielberg, you know, he grew up during that time. He should know what a protest looked like in the early 70s. Anyway, so those
he throws protests incorrectly into films. I mean, because like in Crystal Skull, they wouldn't really be protesting the Red, like were people protesting on college campuses the Red Scare. Like I know the Red Scare was a thing, but it just felt a little bit like out of time. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but
I forget that whole movie, honestly. Okay, Colin, give us your ranking of all of Spielberg's movies.
Oh my God, y'all are gonna hate me, but whatever. You already think I'm tasteless. It's okay. So number one, would you like me to go from the top to bottom or what?
Yeah, top to bottom.
Okay. My number one is Jurassic Park.
Okay.
I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like that it's your number one, but you'll see that I like that you put it high up.
Okay. Number two, Jaws.
Okay.
Nice.
Number three, Raiders, of course. Has to be top three. Number four, Minority Report.
Good.
Oh.
I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah.
Number five, The Last Crusade. And I will say, depending on the day, I might even like it sometimes a little more than Raiders. Like certain things I enjoy. But
what are you saying about Last Crusade?
I'm saying that like Last Crusade is almost as good to me as Raiders, but then you look at it again and you're like, absolutely not. Like Raiders is just
totally.
Wait, he directed Last Crusade?
Yeah, did he not? Am I incorrect?
I think you're incorrect.
Oh,
well,
I had it on my list. Let me look.
Oh no. Well, I'm sorry. I hope it.
Oh no, it is. It is.
He directed it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I take it back. So I just need to adjust my list.
So yeah, Last Crusade, love it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I can respect that as well. I mean, Sean Connery and Harrison Ford, their relationship in that movie is just so precious and funny and touching and interesting. And like Sean Connery never played a character like that. And I feel like he should have played characters like that all the time.
Yeah.
Oh
Totally.
yeah. And I think that there are a lot more complex characters in general. You know, even though like Raiders, all the characters are perfect, but they're like perfect in their simplicity. Like that movie is like a beautiful adventure, you know, that just will never be topped. But Last Crusade goes into a few more interesting things, like the love interest, for example, in Raiders, Marion. She's spunky. She's got a past. She's very enjoyable because that actress Karen Allen really portrayed the scenes well. And she had a lot of chemistry. I get that, but in this third one, like there's a lot more levels to the Allison Doody character. You know, she's, you know, I think it's a masterwork of cinema that they made a Nazi sympathizer a little bit sympathetic. Like, how do you do that? But they did it. And then the villains are a little more three-dimensional as well, as opposed to like they're only evil Nazis that they were in Raiders. Like there's shades of gray to some things, you know, because Donovan wants like eternal life, and what does that mean to him? And he's really just like this, you know, this guy who's going to do whatever it takes to get to this goal, this ideology that he believes. Anyway, so that's.
I think you're perilously close to pissing me off though, because Raiders introduced the subtlety with Belloc. So come on.
Oh, I do love Belloc. I do. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I would never tarnish that. That actor's great. Who I first saw as Ivan Ooze in the first Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie. Anyway, moving on. So next, number 6 is Schindler's List. Number 7,
I mean,
Empire
not nice,
of.
but good.
Okay. Number 7, Empire of the Sun. Number 8, Close Encounters. Number 9, Duel, which was a recent watch for me.
So
I absolutely loved it.
Thus far, a lot of these rankings are, pretty close to my rankings, by the way, except for The Last Crusade. But all the other ones, those are all top tier.
Well, it's about to get weird.
Okay.
So, well, not with this one, because this film is just perfect. The Color Purple.
Yeah.
Then number 11, Lincoln.
Yeah.
Now into the weird section, where I think my list is going to confuse. So my number 12 is The Lost World.
Oh.
What?
I know everyone hates this movie.
No. Actually, in your defense, what I hate almost more than anything is the Lost World book.
Oh, don't
I
read
feel
it,
like Spielberg did the best he could. Basically, the studio was like, look, first of all, hey, Michael, can you write a new book with these dinosaurs? No, dude, I've moved on. Come on, please. How much do we have to pay? I don't want, how much do we have to? Fine, but it'll suck. We don't care. And then Spielberg, hey, can you make a sequel? Come on, dude, we've moved. Can you make a sequel? We'll throw money at you. Fine. But you're right that it's not as bad as the book.
The book is terrible. I love the first Jurassic Park book. Michael Crichton hit that shit out of the park.
Totally.
No pun intended. So good. Read it at a lake house, and I know dinosaurs have been dead for years, and I was freaked out. That book is really effective.
That actually made me more freaked out than Jaws in that sense.
Yeah. Like, oh God, these velociraptors.
I'm looking around for velociraptor.
I'm gonna jump in the lake so that I don't have to meet a velociraptor. Anyway. So this one I think is controversial because a lot of people really hate it. Is my number 13 is Hook.
Oh, I've never seen Hook.
I have seen it, and I kind of put it out of my memory.
I know it's the only version of Peter Pan that I really enjoyed. There are a lot out there, and I didn't like the recent ones. I thought they were garbage, and I never fell in love with the Disney one, the animated one. So anyway, and also I'm a huge fan of Robin Williams, so that probably plays a factor in this. So number 14, Temple of Doom.
Okay.
I like a lot of the crazy choices in that movie. Like I love, even though a lot of them really don't work, and I don't like either of his sidekicks. I like I like that Spielberg just seems to like be having a crazy time. Like that's like if you took the Spielberg script to either of the Indiana Jones movies and you poured like whiskey on it. I'm not suggesting that he was drunk while he was writing it or whatever, or directing it, or I don't think he wrote it. But anyway, so that's my 14.
No, listen. That movie has fun things in it.
Yeah.
But what drove it home for me, how the quality difference was years ago. I don't know, like a decade ago or something. I had a party where it was a whole Raiders thing, Indiana Jones thing party.
I was there.
Honda was there. And
awesome.
we made food to coincide, like to go along with each one of the movies. And so, of course, Temple of Doom was a lot of fun because we had Snake Surprise, which I did, by the way. That was my dish. Snake Surprise. And I actually had like a plastic snake and all these. Anyways, so far, so good. But in watching it, it was definitely the one where I was like less interested. I'm like,
yeah.
Whereas the first and the third were like, oh, I want to watch this.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple scenes that I like in Temple of Doom. When they're in the I don't know what you call it, like a speakeasy, or where they're all in the tuxedos. It's pretty interesting scene. The bug scene is actually kind of compelling.
Yeah.
And as an Asian, I was just happy to see an Asian in a movie, even though it was one of the most stereotypical accented characters of all time. I mean, when I watched 16 Candles, I like Long Duck Dong because I was like, well, at least there's an Asian somewhere in this movie.
Yeah. And he was funny, and he knew kung fu or whatever.
Yeah. No, sure. I mean, I think that there is a real heart to the film beneath all the weirdness. I like that it's not just about archaeology and finding some precious item or whatever, like getting closer to God. It's also about, hey, these people are, being oppressed by this weirdo, and let's like save these kids. So I like that aspect of it. And then 15, I put The Adventures of Tintin. I think it's really fun. Number 16, which this is probably, no, it comes up in the next film. I was going to say there's a transition, but number 16 for me is The Terminal, which I love.
Is
Number
that with
7,
Tom Hanks?
Yeah. And Catherine Zeta-Jones. Great movie. It's one of his most character-driven stories, and I love how like effortlessly funny it is. Like, it's not beating you over the head with jokes, but it's just very charmingly funny. So definitely give it a peek.
Yeah, I think it suffered because it was at Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks' peak fame, and it was marketed as such. It's like the new Tom Hanks Spielberg movies coming out, and then it's this really quiet, slow story about a guy stuck in an airport, and I think it let down a lot of people because they were thinking it was going to be
Saving Private Ryan 5.
Yeah, kind of like that, and it wasn't. Like Catch Me If You Can came out 2 years before, which is a very frenetic, action-oriented movie. And I think The Terminal, and I remember thinking, oh, wait, this movie is not what I thought it was going to be. It might have even been kind of marketed as like the next Catch Me As You Can. And I remember about halfway through the movie being like, I bet you everyone hates this movie, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, I didn't see it when it came out. I watched it later on DVD some afternoon, and I think it's the perfect like at-home movie. So if you can find it to stream somewhere, it's a nice, relaxing watch. The next movie, number 17, is Saving Private Ryan.
Now,
which I know is really
now
low.
we got to have some words. Like number 17, like you got to bump some people off of that list.
Well,
Saving
Collin,
Private Ryan.
We haven't talked about war movies, Collin. Do you just not like war movies?
I'm very picky when it comes to war movies.
But the Saving Private Ryan.
I know it's like
a
the
whole
quintessential
video game
one.
genre.
I know. I think for me, I would need to rewatch it before I don't want to dog on it. I don't think anything's wrong with it. I think it just didn't reach me as much as the other films. I really don't have any criticisms of it.
Yeah.
And then this one I think is also going to be possibly even more stirring, is E.T. is my 18.
No, I get it. No, I totally get it. I mean, how old are you, Collin? What year were you born?
I'm 29.
So you're born in what?
1991.
91.
And at what age did you watch it?
I watched E.T. when I was about 10 or 11, I think, at a friend's house.
But still, when I was 10 or 11 when this came out, it was Michael Jackson and there was E.T.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing in the world, and it just dominated the world.
Yep.
And for me, it just felt like, I don't know how to describe it, but it felt like a movie that was made just for me in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? I
think I like it more now because I really loved the first season of Stranger Things and subsequently the new It movies. And so all these like 80s kids adventures with bikes and like exploring supernatural and extraterrestrial things. I do like it. So possibly if I rewatched it, because I certainly have watched it again, but I don't think I've watched it since college, which was at least 4 years ago. So
no, I get it. In fact, I was a little reticent to put it that high because I don't know if I would like it as an adult watching it, but I put it that high because it was such a big deal to me when I was a kid.
I've seen it recently, and I gotta say, I mean, you'll find out where I put it, but it held up for me in the sense that, yes, sure, caveat, special effects, blah, blah, blah. But the other thing I'll say, 80s and 70s, I guess movies used to talk down a lot less to kids and people. Yeah. It was a lot, I felt a lot more real, like, and in a way like, whoa, this is for kids. Cause like, there's some dialogue here. That's like, I don't know. It was just, I really thought it was good.
Yeah.
My number 19 is Catch Me If You Can. My number 20 is AI. My number 21 is Crystal Skull.
That's the end of your list, right?
No, I have more.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. There are some things.
Wait,
about
I haven't
Crystal's-
heard. I haven't heard Munich. I haven't
my
heard Amistad. I haven't heard Always. I haven't heard the.
Oh
You know,
my
okay.
God.
Oh, I have three. So I'll get that out of the way. I've never seen Munich. I've never seen Amistad,
Okay,
and I've
okay,
never
okay,
seen
okay.
1941.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So there are three that I still have yet to see. My number 22 is Bridge of Spies.
Okay.
Number
I've not seen it, but I
23.
guarantee you it is not worse than Crystal
It's
Skull.
not great. It's not great, but it's yeah. It's you know it's watchable.
It's not worse than Crystal Skull on an artistic level, but I didn't enjoy watching it as much as Crystal Skull. So my number 23 is The Post, which
Yeah.
I thought was held up really only by Meryl Streep. 24, Sugarland Express.
Oh,
Didn't
I
reach
haven't
me.
seen that. Yeah, I haven't seen that movie. That's one of his early ones, right?
That was, I think, his big screen debut after Duel, which was for TV originally.
Yeah, I never saw Sugarland Express.
It's set in Texas, based on, I don't know, I guess some kind of real event. Maybe I just didn't want to see Texas, but whatever. I didn't like it.
I want to see that.
And I want to acknowledge the fact that I'm from here. No, I'm just kidding. Number 25, War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
Number 26, Ready Player One. Number 27, Always.
How can you not like Always? I mean, it's a cute story, and you know, Richard Dreyfuss, Holly Hunter.
I didn't think Richard Dreyfuss was well cast because you have to be able to play comedy, but also aloofness, and also like, you know, you needed somebody like Steve Carell or Jim Carrey, someone that like can access melancholy within large scale humor stuff. Because I don't know, the Richard Dreyfuss character didn't work for me. I loved Holly Hunter, and actually, I thought that I was like, I hope she was nominated because she made me tear up. I should have put this higher because of her, and also a couple of songs that were in it. Like I put them on a playlist. "Smoke Gets in Your Eyes." I sent that to my boyfriend, and I was like, this song is absolutely gorgeous. So I did love some things about it.
Yeah.
Just too much plain bullshit that I didn't care about.
I'm just kind of giving you crap. I bet you anything if I saw it for the first time. I mean, I watched this movie when I was 18, late at night on HBO or something. And I remember, and I was like, I have no idea what this movie's about. And it just, you know, it struck a chord with my 18-year-old self, I think.
It was kind of weird, like the way that they approached the writing of the husband giving the dead husband, spoilers, he dies.
Spoiler.
He comes back as a ghost, and then he like gives her permission to move on with this guy that looks like Superman.
Wait, who are the actors? Who's in this movie?
So Richard Dreyfuss is a pilot, and he dies, and then he comes, and Holly Hunter is sad, and then Holly Hunter meets this kind of hunky guy, and so Richard Dreyfuss is like the everyman, and the hunky guy, you know, Holly Hunter is like kind of, you know, rejecting him a little bit, and then Richard Dreyfuss in his love, Richard Dreyfuss is like doing things to make sure she doesn't fall in love with him. And then eventually,
so it's kind of a comedy.
Eventually he realizes
I have seen it, maybe,
that he needs to help his wife fall in love, and that's his, you know, his ticket to heaven, essentially.
Oh, okay.
And John Goodman's in it too. Is he's just a friend? He's a friend of the two of them.
He's the friend, and his character trait is that he eats. You know,
He eats what? You cut out there for a
He
second.
No, he eats.
Oh, that's his joke.
He didn't get cut out. He eats.
I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but I like John Goodman, but I don't think they gave him much to play. He was kind of, I felt like a butt of like a big man joke, but
okay.
You know, maybe it's just me.
I mean, I haven't seen it since I was 18, so I can't really say much.
I don't know. Rewatch it. I mean, I think that like, honestly, like if I might rewatch it again later with my loved one, just because there's some really great like cuddle moments. But you have to wait for so much plain stuff to happen. I did like the Holly, sorry, not Holly Hunter, the Audrey Hepburn stuff. She's like the god figure that kind of gives him the path, as it were, the sage, you know.
Yeah.
And it was great to see her. I had never seen Audrey Hepburn in her, you know, not iconic Audrey Hepburn state where she's like Breakfast at Tiffany's or, you know, My Fair Lady. But anyway, so that's Always. And then 28 is BFG. And then my last is, which is 29, Warhorse.
Yeah, I can see that. Warhorse definitely missed its potential. I think because of the script, maybe, if I remember right. All right, Berto, rattle off your list.
I'm just going to do some honorary mentions because these are movies that either I actually didn't watch, but I know they're great, or I watched, but it was so long ago, I basically don't remember, but I know they're great.
Yeah.
Or I like them, but not enough to put them in my top 9 list here.
Okay.
All right. So the honorary mentions, Empire of the Sun. I did watch it. I just don't remember, but I know it's great. Color Purple. Never watched it. I know it's great. Minority Report. I did watch it. I liked it. Just not enough to go in my top 9. AI. That's good. I like it. It's a big effort. You know, kudos, Spielberg. And Duel. Again, I did enjoy this. I just kind of don't remember the details. All right. That's my honorary mentions. Top 9. Number 9. Catch Me If You Can. Number 8. Close Encounters.
Yeah.
Love that music.
Did you see it when you were a kid?
No, well, I mean, yes, but not in the theater. It was like on.
Yeah.
I think they played it on TV.
Yeah.
It really holds up. It's
It's
beautiful.
yeah. And then number that was 9. 7. E.T. I hear you, Collin. Yeah, I mean, I hear you, Collin, but you can't come in. So like, I think E.T. was maybe of the time. And to be honest, I actually wasn't crazy about E.T. Like there were people that were, my cousin was crazy about E.T. But I still thought it was really enjoyable and stuff. Okay, number 6. Yeah, I'm gonna go. Yes, I'm gonna put the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Last Crusade.
6.
I thought so.
I hadn't included it before because I actually, for some ridiculous notion, I thought it wasn't him. But okay, so that means number 5, Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
It's got to be in your top. I mean, come on, what are we doing here?
I'll rewatch it with you on your channel, okay?
Oh, okay, let's do that. Number 4, Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I'm there with you. Jurassic Park. Now, I get it. You know, like if you watch it, well, first of all, special effects hold up, which is crazy, unbelievable that the special effects would hold up.
Yeah.
But some of it, there are some moments that are a little on the nose. Still, like amazing movie. Number 3, Jaws. I put Jaws at number 3.
Oh.
Number 2, Schindler's List. So Schindler's List, I've only seen one time. It might be as much as I can handle in one lifetime, but it was a masterclass in everything. Storytelling, filmography.
I encourage you to rewatch it. I'm rewatching it right now. It's a 2.5 hour movie. In the first hour and a half, there might be 1 or 2 deaths.
Okay.
Not a lot.
Okay.
So in the beginning,
maybe
it's mostly Schindler and the workers and Schindler like using his charisma. Okay. It's not till the latter half of the movie
that it gets really dark.
Terrible things.
But in either case, I remember I went to a small theater in Capitol Hill. The Egyptian, is it?
Yeah, Egyptian.
Dude, and it was so draining, but so amazing. And by the way, growing up in Colombia, I didn't know any of this stuff. I actually got the sense that a lot of people here didn't really even know. Like I'd heard a little bit about it, but it was so eye-opening, so moving, etc. Okay. Number 1, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I gotta say, like it, other than Star Wars, I don't remember another movie at that age impacting me as much. I went to see this one in the theater. I can't believe it, by the way. There's some scenes that, because I was like 5, but oh, so fun. Such a larger than life character. So well directed. So rewatchable. Oh.
Yeah. This came out this summer after Empire Strikes Back. And I saw it with my whole family in John Dan's. You remember John Dan's theater in Bellevue?
Well, I mean, I don't remember it, but
Oh, it would have been. Well, anyway, there was a
Yeah.
theater in Bellevue that was just a one theater. Now it's a Barnes and Noble, or I don't know what it is now, but
Okay.
and it was back then. Well, anyway, I just remember being a huge crowd. Like there was no line. It was just a huge crowd kind of heading in, and I remember my family was like, "Whoa, this movie's popular."
It might be the most. I mean, we've all mentioned the word fun. I can't, other than possibly Empire, the one you just mentioned. Like, I don't know if there's a more fun movie that I can think of. It's
other than Back to the Future,
frame.
which is the defining 80s movie, as we know.
Yeah.
And my worst movie, possibly of all time from any director ever, but maybe not. I'll probably put it in a bottom 10 or something. Can you guess?
Crystal Skull.
Crystal Skull.
Well,
I won't even honor it with the first part of the name. I'm just going to call it Crystal Skull. I got to say, why do I hate it so much? First of all, I hate anytime someone grabs something that I loved as a child and it's like, here, I have an idea. I'll make this crappy version of it. That's why I had such a negative reaction to the episodes 1 through 3 stuff. But this one is like a whole other level of egregiousness because the guy gets in a fridge, gets thrown off, but fine. You know, Indiana Jones survives crazy things, fine. But then you have his son like being a monkey, but fine, you know, like people do weird action scenes and stuff. But you ruin Marion's character. Like you ruin it. She's forever ruined. You can't like her character anymore. It's so bad. And then there's freaking Alien. Like, come on.
Look, cut George Lucas some slack. He came up with all these ideas when his head was stuck in the shark. Okay.
Yeah. So it's the script. The directing is not the problem. It's the script.
I would give you that.
But you know, after kind of thinking about the first 3 Indiana Jones movies, I can see where the Crystal Skull script seemed logical because in the first one you got Nazis, but second one you basically have like a spiritual cult.
Oh yeah, I guess it is religion.
Like he casts spells essentially.
Yeah.
You have this magical.
There's magic in all 3. That's fair.
Yeah, and then the third one you have God and angels and stuff, and so it's not a leap to make the fourth one about aliens. You know, let's just make it about aliens. It's not that big of a deal. And then the scene with all the bugs, you think that looks stupid, but you think, well, in the second one there were lots of bugs. The scene where they're in the cars going down, I don't know how long that scene is. It's like 27 minutes long. They're going through the jungle and
that's the worst.
And again, in one, he's stuck to the tank as they're hitting the, you know, and so there's analogies to it. So
Kirk.
if you read it in the script, you'd be like, okay, but the execution was just so
yeah.
bad.
Because let me ask you guys, what's one of your favorite meal, your favorite like dish?
Pizza.
Okay.
Pad Thai.
Pad Thai. Okay, let's take Pad Thai, Colin. If you hand me the ingredients for Pad Thai, I guarantee you're not going to like the outcome. So just because you have all the ingredients doesn't mean
this is a great analogy. Yeah.
Totally, I get it. And it was, so I just wonder what went wrong. And I remember there was an interview with Spielberg, if I remember right, like afterwards. And Spielberg was just like, well, you know, maybe you should talk to George. Maybe.
Yes.
And I think he was also saying something like, well, during the development, George really wanted to get his hands on this thing. I remember like Spielberg was basically saying George his ego is so overblown at this point that
oh my God,
he didn't let me get my hands on that thing, and so I just went along for the ride.
I think you're probably right because it felt the equivalent was done to Indy that was done to Star Wars.
Yeah,
and so.
Yeah, if you said this was a Star Wars sequel, like, you know, episode 3.1, I would have believed you because it definitely has that feel.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do. Wait.
And you just wait.
Please take care of yourself because
you deserve it.
Nom, 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 nom.